Can you hear me? Okay. Thank you so much for coming. This presentation, as Yosra mentioned, is on barriers to mass media development in the Armenian transnation. Transnation means a global nation, and we'll discuss it a little bit more up ahead in this presentation. A little about myself. My name is Arpi Khatcherian. I'm an outreach assistant at the U.S. Embassy's Cultural Center called the Information Resource Center, which is part of the public affairs section that has to do with public issues and public diplomacy. I also work part-time at the Egyptian Radio and Television Union as an Armenian broadcaster. Introduction. Some of you might have heard of Armenia, some of you might, because a lot of people, sometimes they don't know what Armenia is or where it's located. It's a small country in Eastern Europe. It is bordered by Georgia, Turkey, Azerbaijan, and Iran. It has a population of 3 million Armenians living inside Armenia, and it's a relatively new country. So we gained our independence in 1991. What's interesting about Armenia is that it has a huge diaspora. So opposed to the 3 million Armenians living within Armenia, we have around 10 million Armenians living outside Armenia. And this diaspora goes back to centuries. It began in the 4th century, where traders migrated to different cities and worked in trade as merchants or religious clergy. They moved to different cities. But the main Armenian diaspora was formed as a result of the genocide of the Armenians at the beginning of the 20th century. Very large numbers of Armenians were deported from their homes in modern-day Turkey, and they moved to different countries in the Middle East, to Europe and the United States. So the actual diaspora was formed in the beginning of the past century. And as you can see in this map, Armenia is located somewhere here. It's a very tiny dot that you can, right there. Okay, you can barely see it on the map, but in this world map, you can see where many Armenians are concentrated. So countries like Russia, they have a big population of Armenians. That's between 100,000 to 3 million Armenians, almost the population of Armenia. In the United States, again, you have these huge communities of Armenians, especially in Los Angeles, in a part called Glendale, which they call Little Armenia. You also have a huge concentration in places like Argentina, Canada, in Iran, and in Egypt. Nations of culture. The UNESCO calls them the cultural industries. Armenian media, whether in the homeland or in the diaspora, they have a unique set of challenges. They have a different set of challenges. And it is my belief, and through this paper, I will try to show you how, when looking at Armenian media, we should look at the media within Armenia and the media in the diaspora to have a holistic look at Armenian media. So media in Armenia, legally, we have great laws protecting journalists and freedom of expression, but the government, of course, exerts pressure tactics on journalists. And these pressure tactics usually get worse during the times of elections, conflict, political conflict, and different things. And there are rampant practices of something called envelope journalism. That's when you read an article in a newspaper and you're not sure whether somebody has paid for this article, whether it's a sponsored article, or whether it is actual journalism. So the lines over there are not very clear. On the other hand, media in the diaspora, they have completely different challenges. First of all, they're dispersed. Okay, as you saw, there are people in the US, some people in Egypt, some people in Russia, Argentina. These are miles and miles apart. But with the internet, these distances have grown to become much less. The other challenge they have is they are living in a foreign country with a foreign language, with a foreign culture, and that they have to preserve their culture, their actual culture. And that's another issue here. And the other part of it is the attachment to the romanticized homeland. Okay, you have this idea of your perfect homeland that you will return to one day. Okay, so the thing is that new media, like the internet, they have opened the door for people to connect with each other. Armenians from Egypt to connect with Armenians in the US and talk about, their shared concerns, and even Armenians living in Armenia. However, there's this, the unregulated nature of the web. You can't really control it. Okay, you could post something and somebody could steal it, or if you're a newspaper, somebody could steal your articles, so you can't really control that kind of thing. So we will try, through interviews with journalists in Armenia and in the diaspora, to see what these barriers and these challenges are for them. So the theoretical framework that I'm using here is the idea of transnationalism. And you may be familiar with this concept from business. Okay, we have transnational global companies. It's a little bit different for communities, and the idea came from the business world to use this concept within societies and cultures. In the traditional diaspora, you have that romanticized homeland. This is a very typical image where you can see Mount Ararat, which is an important symbol for Armenians. It's like the pyramids of Egypt for Egyptians. You see it in our homes, you see it on our websites, in our newspapers. And you can see like the Armenian church, which gathers Armenian people together, and the traditionally dressed Armenian women dancing the shurchbar, or the typical Armenian dance. So this is a very typical image, and this is the image that most of us we have in our minds when we think about our homeland. And this is the idea of the traditional diaspora. But scholars argue that this is changing now. And what's happening is that the diaspora is changing into a transnation. You have these organizations that are sometimes based in the diaspora, sometimes based in Armenia, and the idea of these organizations is to connect people together. So we have something like the HBU, it's the Armenian General Benevolent Union. It's a huge organization that was started here in Egypt, and it has different chapters all around the world. And now it's headquartered in New York. So they have different programs. First of all, it's a philanthropic organization. It started off during the genocide to help Armenians, help Armenian orphans, widowed women, get them back into society. But nowadays, we don't have that problem. So nowadays, they're helping Armenians in Armenia, farmers, they're establishing schools and different community centers over there. In addition to that, they have activities within the diaspora as well. And one of the activities they do is AGBU Young Professionals. They do internship programs in New York, in Paris, in Yerevan. And the idea is for Armenians to go to these cities, meet other Armenians, like-minded Armenians their age, and why not, get to know more about each other, and at some point make Armenian babies. Okay. So it's a sort of cultural preservation taking a new form. So these transnational organizations, they get out of the physical space of the diaspora. They're about the connections. They're about this wide border of things connecting people together. So transnational communities, they inhabit fluid, non-uniform diasporic public sphere. Okay? And Tolonian, one of the scholars who studied the Armenian diaspora, he says that the Armenian diasporas nowadays are undergoing a process that's changing from exilic nationalism to diasporic transnationalism. This means that no more they are thinking as a nation in exile, but they are thinking as Egyptians say, if I'm going to use my example. I'm an Egyptian with Armenian heritage, and I am connected to my home country. Okay, so no longer do I have that idea, like my grandparents, that one day we would be returning to our homeland and going back there and living there. But now I'm established here, I'm a professional, I have my job, I have my family, and I'm at the same time connected to my homeland. And they say that this transnationalism or diasporic transnationalism, it has certain characteristics. So first of all, you're more engaged with your host country. So I'm more engaged with Egypt. I know the language, I speak Arabic fluently, I don't have an accent. At the same time, I can access my home country at any time. Okay? I don't have a problem going back to Armenia. I can get the visa at any time and go and visit. At the same time, there are transnational organizations such as the HBU, such as the young professionals that connect us together. Okay? And as you can see, this was in 2007 when I participated in the internship program in Yerevan, and as you can see, you have Mount Ararat in the back. Okay? Mount Ararat is currently located in Turkey, but it can be seen almost everywhere from Armenia, and that's why it's a huge symbol for our nation. So, the other theory that I'm using is the barriers to media development. So there are 6 barriers. First of all, there's the physical barriers. As we discussed, we're in diaspora, so we are geographically located far, far apart. That's a barrier. Cultural barriers, language barrier, okay? Living in Egypt, we have to speak Arabic, but we still hold on to our Armenian language. Another aspect of this is that there are 2 forms of the Armenian language. And if you want me to talk more about that, we could talk a little bit more. We have Western Armenian and we have Eastern Armenian. So, and sometimes hard to understand what is produced in one language in the other language. So it's difficult for me to understand the language of Armenia sometimes. Other than that, we have economic barriers. Sometimes newspapers in the diaspora, they don't have funding, or they have to be funded by certain institutions. Government barriers is another aspect. So sometimes governments can help journalism, sometimes they can, put problems for them. Media barriers. Sometimes journalists themselves, they do self-censorship. Finally, technology barriers. Not everybody is good with technology. Try convincing somebody who's been doing the same thing for, say, 50 years and tell them, let's put your newspaper online. They will not want to do that. So historically, Armenians were one of the first peoples who actually printed in their own language. And this is a huge achievement because the Armenian script is unlike any other script in the world. So after the invention of the printing press, in 1512, we printed the first Armenian book. The first newspaper appeared in 1794. And newspapers appeared late because of the dispersed nature of the Armenians. They were located in different places. And to have a newspaper, you have to have a large enough audience to circulate those newspapers too. And one of the other milestones is Pazmadeb, or the foundation of this Armenian journal, which is the longest surviving Armenian journal, printed in Venice. Then you had a period of turmoil, starting the 1800s. And you had the Armenian genocide in 1915, where a lot of Armenians were displaced from their country. Then Armenia, it went into the Soviet Union, became a Soviet country. But during that small period when Armenia gained its independence, it was just for 2 years, from 1918 to 1920, that you had this flow, this outburst of journalists creating different things. So you had more than 120 journals within those 2 years. The media in communist Armenia and beyond. Of course, the communists, they tried to control the media. It was the official mouthpiece of the government. And the electronic media, television and radio, they were born within this medium. Okay, so they never had any freedom. The diaspora, and there was a certain shift that happened. Before, the diaspora was one of the cultural producers. But after the Armenian genocide, no more was the diaspora the main producer of Armenian culture, because Armenia was supported by a very strong state. You had independent Armenia, which had a brief golden age. After we gained independence in 1991, we had a brief golden age after the collapse of the Soviet Union, but because of economic troubles, the government again tried to control journalism. Okay? Nowadays, press freedom goes up and down in Armenia. So when you have elections, press freedom goes down a little bit. But when you're, if the country is stable, people can say whatever they want. So this is the media landscape in Armenia. We have a lot of print, we have radio stations, television channels, but the government does have its ways of controlling them. So they don't license television channels very easily. Sometimes they try to control what newspapers publish, but again, it fluctuates. And this was a very interesting quote by one of the journalists. He says that sometimes you can figure out, because many newspapers are supported by political parties or certain businessmen. So he says that you can figure out whose newspaper this is by the people it doesn't criticize. Okay, so if it stays away from certain party, then you know who it belongs to. And here we look at different things, different aspects. Professional journalism is being developed in Armenia. It's not fully developed. There are certain problems when relating to professionalism in Armenia, and envelope journalism is one of those problems. Second is the legal framework. Legally, Armenian journalists, they have a lot of freedom, but usually law enforcers, they do not know what the laws are. Okay? So they could pressure journalists, but then other journalists, they have to intervene, and sort of there is a conflict between the different parties. Access for information is also a problem. Okay, not everybody wants to give information to journalists. There's also economic pressures. It's hard to get advertising. It's hard to sell your newspaper. Again, this is a problem. So you need government support and support from wealthy businessmen. The media landscape in the diaspora is quite different, okay? And I will use this interesting thing to show you that, the host country effect, okay? So diasporan communities, they are located in different countries. So the freedom of the press for Armenian press in Egypt, say, depends on the whole ecosystem in Egypt, okay, and what the government permits and doesn't permit. So let's look at the Middle East region. You have Syria, Lebanon, and Egypt. In Lebanon, Armenians and people in general, they have a larger degree of freedom. Okay, you can take part in politics. It's not the same in Egypt. Okay, so politics is a bit taboo in Egypt. All right, it's the same in Syria. You can't be politically active. So the center of control in the Armenian diaspora for Egypt and Syria is the Armenian Church, but in Lebanon, it's the political parties. Okay, and that's why here there's more control in Egypt on what you can publish and what you can't publish. Okay, so it usually depends on the overall system in your country. And then if we look at Egypt, a lot of Armenians, they left during the Nasser era because there were a lot of economic pressures and political pressures on them. So there's always this interdependence on the host country and how it affects you. I think I'm short on time, so I'll be skipping some parts. Okay. So Armenian media in Egypt. These are some of the earlier newspapers that we had. But currently we have 3 newspapers that are published, and these 3 newspapers are Husafer, Arep, and Jahangir. And these 3 newspapers are supported by political parties. Okay? We also have Ader Dadu, which is a newsletter published by the AGBU. Again, it is supported by a big organization. And this is the Arabic language Arek, which is a bi-monthly or a monthly, newspaper that comes out again by the AGBU. Again, you have this strong, organization that is supporting it. We also have the Armenian Radio Hour, and that is broadcast on Radio Cairo on the European program. And we had a very, short trial with something called Armaveni, which was an online newspaper. It was doing great, it was very popular, but there were certain problems and it had to be closed down in 2012 due to mainly economic restrictions. So for this paper, I interviewed, okay, can I go over time just 5 minutes? I had a set of open-ended questions delivered to different journalists. I delivered them to 12 journalists and media professionals. Unfortunately, many of them did not respond. Only 5 responded. And out of the 5 who responded, 3 of them they asked to remain anonymous. They didn't want me to say who they were. Okay. And I also added my own knowledge from the Egyptian Radio and Television Union to their responses. So they said the first question was about the obstacles that they faced as media professionals. The first one was access to information. It was very hard for them to access information, especially if they worked for independent news organizations. Okay? People were skeptical. Why do you want this information? Who are you working for? How are you going to make my organization appear? Okay? So you're working with these people with very old mentalities and you're trying to do something different. So not everybody will be supporting you in that. Again, they don't want to give information, they don't want to give financial support. Okay? You're doing an online portal, that's great, I support you, but that's it. I'm not going to give you any funding, I'm not going to give you any money to help you out in that. The other problem is you have journalists juggling different careers. He's a doctor that works for a newspaper, a teacher that writes articles from time to time. You don't have the position of journalist, you can't support yourself as a journalist in the diaspora, and even sometimes in Armenia. I myself have a problem with the shortage of news material in Western Armenian. Almost everything is written in Eastern Armenian, the language of Armenian. So you can't really access information in Western Armenian. Support from Armenian organizations, as we said, it's very lacking. Almost no financial support, and there's suspicion. What are you going to publish? Who are you going to publish? Who are you supporting? And somebody said they look at us as we are illegitimate. Okay, we are illegitimate children. Where are you from? We want to know who's supporting you. Sometimes there is state support, especially here in Egypt and in Hungary, where the state sponsors our time on the Armenian radio hour. Okay, there is no support from the Armenian community, but the Egyptian state supports us in having that 1 hour a week. That 1 hour a day. The effects of the internet. I'll start with the negative effects of sensationalism and poor quality material. You're trying to get news out very quickly, so you're not focusing on quality. But the positive effects are that you're liberated from the power. You can say whatever you want. Okay, you can start a newspaper. You can start a blog. Nobody's going to restrict you. It's fast and cheap to disseminate information, and it's very efficient. Finally, some people, they viewed that print is going to go away. Alas, it's going to be no more. But others, they saw that print journalism will survive because it offers them the chance to be more analytical and provide more in-depth stories. The limitations. We used open-ended questions, and it was a questionnaire, so some journalists, they answered in depth, others, they didn't answer in depth. They just, had very short answers. And it's qualitative data that we cannot work with. And again, as I mentioned, they had a preference for anonymity. They didn't want some of them, they declined to say their real identity. Okay? And I think that's because of sensitivities with the organizations they are working for. And as I said at the very beginning, my recommendation is, if we're looking at Armenian media, that we take a holistic approach. We don't look at journalism in Armenia on its own. We have to look at the diaspora and its cultural production as well. Okay, and that's it for me. Sorry if I went over time. Thank you.
Thank you, Arpi, for this presentation. It was wonderful, by the way. And now let's move to another topic.
Let's talk about the
foundational model of reputation, which is based on sentiment analysis of Arabic posts on Facebook. This is Yosra Shahin. I'm a graduate student in AUC, CS department, the School of Sciences and Engineering. Actually, I have about 15 years experience in this field, and I'm very interested in social media and the sentiment analysis. I know that sentiment analysis is something most of us don't know about it, so let's have a look about it and know something interesting now. Arpi have talked about the media, and I think she's focusing on journalism, right, Arpi? Okay, but for me, actually, I concentrate on the social media. It means the Facebook, Google, plus YouTube, WhatsApp, these kinds of things. First of all, I'll start with an introduction about the context. Let's know about social media, which all of us know about it. And let's talk about the Arabic language, what's the specifications for it, and then what is sentiment analysis and what is reputation score. Let's have a look. Social media. Okay, before I start, can you give me an example of social media that you are using every day? Active users of social media, daily users.
WhatsApp.
Twitter. WhatsApp.
Instagram.
Instagram. What about Facebook? It's not there. Let's see some statistics about this. So, first of all, we said that social media is a kind of treasure about people's opinion, and we have a lot of information there. So why we don't have some useful information from these chatting that happens on the social media? So it's considered a treasure of people's opinion, and these are the famous social media, and you already said some of them here. Okay, so some statistics about Facebook. In 2017, there was about 1,180 million daily active users of Facebook. And in 2016, in every 60 seconds, there was 510,000 comments, about 293,000 status updates, and there was about 15% of the youth between the age of 18 to 24, they start using Facebook once they wake up. And 42% of the marketers report that Facebook is an important tool for them to talk about their business. So actually, Facebook and social media is not only used for personal attachment, no, it's also used for business. Do you agree on this? Have you seen examples of doing business via the social media like Facebook? Yeah, we have a lot of groups selling food, selling clothes. So, can you see social media is not personalized anymore? Business is there. So that's why we need to get some information, some benefits from this. And let's compare the daily usage of the social media. For Facebook, there was about 1,180 billion people. For Twitter, it's less than this, and for Instagram. So can you see there is a change here? Facebook is increasing in using. So that's why I focused in my study about Facebook. I didn't start with Twitter or Instagram. So we are done with social media. What about Arpi posts? Let me ask you this question. When you are sending data in social media, do you write it in English or in Arabic or in Franco? Franco, yeah. So this is the problem. Sometimes we have Franco, and sometimes we have purely Arabic, and sometimes we have purely English. Okay. So now I'm talking about Arabic, those who are writing their posts using the Arabic language, not the Franco one. What's the problem of Arabic language? What's the peculiarity of it? First of all, Arabic is written from right to left, no capitalization, and the Arabic letters have different shapes based on the position in the words. And we have this MSA, which is the modern standard Arabic, that is have a lot of dialects of the Arabic. Can you see we have Egyptian dialects, we have Tunisian, we have Saudi, these things. And also we have numerous diacritics which can completely change the meaning of the words. For example, the word madrasa and mudarrisa, they have the same spelling if you write it, but you have different diacritics and they give you different meaning. The first one is a school and the second one is a teacher. Okay, so this is the problem with using Arabic language in social media. Okay? Now, do you think Arabic language is important? We can just focus on English or in Franco? Actually, based on statistics, there are more than 3 folds of Arabic social information than in English, by the way. And Arabic language becomes the 9th most used language in the Facebook. And in 2010, there were about 3.4 million people using Arabic language, but in 2012, there was about 20.16 million people. Can you see the change from 3 to 20 millions? Okay, so Arabic is really important. We have a radical change here. So, what about sentiment analysis? What is sentiment analysis? Here, I need to know about the emotions or the feelings of people about certain things, like service, campaign, a product, a company. Okay, so this is sentiment analysis, and what I need to do is to measure how this opinion, if they are negative or positive or neutral. Let's have examples of this. Can you see this one? This post says that this mobile is amazing because it has a lot of features. So it's considered positive, right? This is the sentiment analysis. I understand the meaning of it. Can you see the problem? Hi guys. Here, for example, for Amazon, when they are making surveys, you just pick up the number. For example, 5 for excellent, 1 for bad service, right? But in the social media, you have just talking, and from this talking, you need to understand if it means positive or negative. Okay? So this statement, this post, means a positive attitude toward this mobile phone. And let's see this one. She's a lady. She's saying that her water here is very bad, and its shape is very ugly. Okay, so this is again a post, and this one gives you a negative attitude towards something. And what about this one? It's about Nokia. Nokia is challenging Apple and Samsung by releasing 3 new versions. Okay, this one is not positive nor negative, so it's called neutral, by the way. So this is sentiment analysis. We need to know if it's positive, negative, or neutral. So based on this, we can know the reputation score of something. So I think sentiment analysis is something easy to happen. Actually, no. There are a lot of changes there. First of all, it's applied on unstructured text. The words that's written is unstructured. Okay? And also, the polarity of opinions identified by a set of keywords are very hard to get. I need to search for keywords to tell me this is a positive attitude or this is negative attitude. And we have a lot of dialectics, as I said. For Egyptian, for example, when we say something is fadhiya, it means something bad, terrible. But the word in Saudi way, if they say fadhiya, it means it's amazing. So it's the same word in Arabic, but it has a completely opposite meaning. So this is hard to get the polarity of the words. Sentiment are context sensitive. For example, if I'm telling you, how are you today? I'll tell you, I'm amazing. But in other words, I'm amazing. So maybe I'll add exclamation marks, maybe I'll add emotions, and it will give me the meaning of the words. Do you understand what I'm saying here? Some people are writing the opposite of their feelings to illustrate that they are feeling bad. This is why it's very hard really to understand what people need to write. Also, we have this problem of negation. For example, if I'm telling you this is jamil, this is beautiful, but before this I said that laysa, awla, so it means not beautiful. So adding negative words just gives me the completely opposite. So I need to search for the context of the word in order to understand its meaning. Also, we have this repetition of letters, like this one, so cool. So this is a kind of emphasizing on positive attitude, so I need to measure this one too. Added, we have misspellings. People are writing just like that, they are not concerned, this is something personal, they are not concerned with the true spelling. And also there are a lot of acronyms like LUL, most of us know what this means. Okay, so I need to handle these ones. I need to understand that LUL is a positive attitude. I need to understand that so cool is a very, very, very positive attitude. How can I measure these things? This is a challenge in the sentiment analysis. Now, after getting some data and know the attitude of people about this service or product, now let's see the reputation score. What is reputation score? Reputation system led the evaluation of parties such as filling survey after completing a transaction, and then I'll make aggregated ratio about this survey. So it's considered the expected value for the future based on the history of this company. Okay, so this is the reputation. How they have done before. Based on this, I'll think about dealing with them or not. So this is reputation score. Before 2002, reputation score was done just in an intuitive way or ad hoc way. But in 2002, they started to use a statistical theory, which is better probability of dynasty. This one is the way of calculating the reputation score. Okay? So, looks like we talked about social media, we talked about Arabic language, we talked about sentiment analysis and the reputation score. Now, let's have a look about the problem that I need to define here. I need to develop a reputation system based on Arabic text from social media, specifically on Facebook. How to extract this reputation is my problem, based on a service provider, using the Arabic language based on sentiment analysis. The approach that I'll use, first of all, I collect data from the Facebook, I concentrate on the Arpi posts, and then I pre-process the data that I've collected. I've created lexicon of the Egyptian dialectics to understand the positive and the negative words using the Egyptian dialectics. Also, I'll work with the functions that calculate the reputation score. The methodology that I have, as I said, data collection, pre-processing, lexicon development, and reputation calculation. Okay, this is some technical information. In order to collect the data, I used a program that's called Apache Notch. This is a very useful one. It's an open source created with Java. It's based on Hadoop, map, and reduce. It makes it very efficient. That's why I mentioned that. I modified this one to collect Arabic posts from Facebook. So just give me a name of an entity, of an idea. For example, let's have the Facebook post that talk about KFC. So I collect all of the Arabic posts about it using Notch. And then I start the data pre-processing using another program called Apache Sonar. And this one do a lot of WordPress. First of all, it really works well with the Arabic language, which is very hard to find. I remove the stop words. What is the stop words? The words that doesn't have a meaning, like lakin, qad, mumkin. These words, like in English, the, and, or, these are stop words. I need to remove them just to calculate then afterwards the positive and the negative attitude. And also I get the stem of the Arabic words. It means that I get rid of the extra letters before and after, like al that comes at the beginning, or al, it's the in English, but in Arabic the is attached to the word. And also like the ta'al marbuta at the end of the words. I get rid of them. And also I did some normalization here. Normalization means that sometimes we have a letter with dots, and sometimes without dots. For example, Hamza al-Alif, sometimes you have Hamza on it, Hamza below it, or without Hamza. So normalization is to deal with these letters just as a one letter. I made the same pre-processing here to the query string. So I get this data from the user, and I have data from the internet, and now it's my work to match and understand what are the positive and the negative ones. The lexicon development, I have used PSL plugin. This is something attached to Solar in order to work with PHP language, in order to make the matching between the negative and positive words based on the lexicon that I've done. The lexicon is a dictionary, by the way. I've created 2 dictionaries of the Egyptian dialects. The first one to indicate the positive words. Can you think of positive words in Egyptian dialectics? That you write in Muslim?
Hello.
Hello. Yeah, we have hello. كمان. مبسوط. So these are positive words. I have put it in a dictionary, thank you, and have other words for the negative attitude. So, in order to make my sentiment analysis. Then I have created the reputation calculation based on the beta distribution. It's kind of equation just to give me a number that shows that the attitude of people toward this service is negative or positive. For example, imagine that people are asking about TE data company. Okay, so I need to collect all the Arabic posts about it, and then search for the negative and the positive words, and give a score about the satisfaction of people, the reputation of TE data in the Egyptian society, for example. Okay, so this is the aim of my study. The results that I have are very promising because, okay, without going into the details, the accuracy was very high, but we have done the test with two ways. The first one, I call it the dictionary approach. For the dictionary approach, I just collect all of the positive words and all of the negative words regardless of a post. Imagine that I have about 60 posts. I collect all of the words there and then search for the positive and the negative. This is the dictionary approach. About the sentence approach, it's from the word sentence. It means that I actually judge a post. For example, if I have a post, this product is beautiful and amazing, and the mobile is very fast. So I say that this post as a whole is positive. But using the first way, which is the dictionary, I say it has 3 points because it has 3 positive words. Do you understand now the difference? One of them is just counting by words, regardless of the post itself. This one is giving a score based on every post. Okay? Actually, the results show that if I work word by word, regardless of the post, I'm having better accuracy. For the recall is the successfulness of the application to get the needed data at about 53%, and which is very good, by the way, result, because as we said, sentiment analysis in social media is working on unstructured data, text data. So that's why the recall is considered good in this case. The result that we have, the first one, the dictionary-based approach is closer to the actual results, and also the time is affecting factor of reputation. It means that at some time we have a trend. A lot of people are talking about a company. Okay, so the reputation of them gets higher. Maybe after 2 months, this reputation is decreasing. So this is something acceptable. Okay, so that's all for social media. The conclusion that we have created an information system which is called the Arabic Reputation Model based on Facebook, RMF, which includes 2 things. Notch and Solar application are used to collect the Arabic posts and to perform the pre-processing of it. And then after that, we worked on the sentiment analysis using lexicons in order to get the reputation score about an entity. Okay? For our future directions, we'll think about handling the negation problem that I mentioned before. I will need to analyze the word based on the context to understand really what the people need to say. Also, I need to expand the lexicon to include other dialects because I focused on the Egyptian one only. And finally, I need to host my application on cloud because collecting data from Facebook is considered or called big data, which needs to be handled by certain kind of servers. So afterwards, I intend to use the cloud as a hostage for this application. Okay, that's all. Do you have any questions? Okay, thank you very much. Now, it's the time for our friend Yasmine El Henawy, and she will give us information about sustainable multi-tier suppliers using power dependency theory. And after that, I think that we'll have a big open discussion about the 3 topics that we have to discuss together. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, good morning. My name is Yasmine El Henawy. I'm a graduated from GC last year, so I consider myself a fresh grad. I'm doing my master's studies in the supply chain. Specifically, my research area of interest is the supply chain sustainability and the supplier-buyer relationship. Totally different topic from the social media. So, does anyone know anything about supply chain? Nothing. So, what is the supply chain? The supply chain actually is a system of organization, people, activities, and information and resources in moving a product from a supplier to customer. So what about sustainability? Sustainability is a system to balance between the needs of the present with that of the future generation. So, when focusing on the organizational angle, this was the general definition, but when focusing on the organizational angle, the performance of the firm has to achieve societal goals with the respect of commercial ones in order to cover the three aspects of sustainability, the three bottom line: environmental, economical, and social sustainability in parallel. So, how can my supply chain be sustainable? The definition of sustainable supply chain is the management of the material, information, and capital flow, as well as cooperation among companies along the supply chain in order to taking goals from the different dimensions of the previously mentioned three aspects of the supply chain, three bottom line: social and environmental and economical sustainability. In 1990s, most studies analyzed sustainability at the level of the firm, in particular studying the sustainability practices and strategies made or adopted by the company itself. Recently, empirical evidence has highlighted the need to move beyond the company's boundaries. So, in order to investigate sustainability at the network level and implement sustainability with the supply network, in particularly suppliers. So this is how a supply chain of a firm or of a product can be. This is the focal firm, which is the firm, for example, P&G, Unilever, or any PepsiCo, or any well-known company. These are the suppliers. These are the direct suppliers, which we are called them first-tier suppliers. And these suppliers also have their own suppliers, which are sub-suppliers, which we call them second-tier suppliers. And this is the supply chain can complete to the third or fourth or whatever, depending on the type of the supply chain. So many studies exerted so much effort on the influence of the focal firm on its direct suppliers, but no one mentioned the influence of the focal firm on its sub-suppliers' sustainability. So how can a focal firm affect its sub-suppliers' sustainability instead of only focusing on the direct suppliers? First, I have to have a knowledge about my sub-suppliers. Most of the firms don't know anything about their sub-suppliers. They only have data or knowledge about their direct suppliers. So the first problem is the knowledge, which I won't be focusing on. After solving the knowledge problem, I will have, as a focal firm, I will have to control my sub-suppliers. How can I control my sub-suppliers without being powerful? I have to have some sort of power in order to control my sub-suppliers and multi-tier sustainability. So that's why I use power dependency theory. I use power dependency theory as is used by many researchers who conducted power in their research. Power of the focal firm, power of the supplier, power of the customer, whatever. So power dependency theory claims that if a supplier is highly dependent on a buyer, then this buyer will have a high level of power over this supplier. So it will help me. I selected PDT, which is the power dependency theory, in order because it will help me to understand the dependence of the supplier influence in the supplier-buyer relationship. So power classification, the power dependency theory classified power into two main classifications, mediating and non-mediating. Mediating, actually, it's anything that enforces my supplier to act the way I prefer to, by punishing him, rewarding, or applying laws. Non-mediating, referent and expert. Referent power is all about the reputation of the focal firm. If the focal firm has a good reputation, so the supplier will accept its influence. So that will make it easier for the focal firm to control its supplier sustainability compliance. Expert, I know that this focal firm is expert in something. It has valuable knowledge in whatever, so I will accept its influence to affect my own sustainability. So contextual factors, when we look to the whole supply chain, of course, or most probably the members of the supply chain won't be operating in the same context. Here, the cultural and geographical distances make it harder for the focal firm to influence its supplier sustainability. So my framework is to analyze or investigate the relationship between the focal firm and the direct supplier and multi-tier suppliers using the different type or sources of power and in the given contextual factors I have. Methodology, I will be using case study. Methodology, single industry will be selected in order to prevent variations in economic conditions, environmental regulations, industry-wide environmental conventions, and multi-tier suppliers to capture the extent of firms' power throughout the supply chain. That's it. Any questions?
Okay, now let's start our discussion. I think that you must be having some questions or comments about the decisions that we have now. Nothing? Okay. Okay. I think that social media and mass has a very important role in our lives. These three studies that we have done so far illustrating this. I need to know more about your own ideas. do you think social media is important for us? Do you think it gives us positive attitude? It adds something to our lives? Or, as in some places on the social media, they said that they changed us. We are not families anymore. We're not sitting together.
It depends on how you use it. It's like how you know like there's nothing that follows because it's sort of two sides. It's either going to affect you very positively or negatively. And some people they cannot live that.
Yeah, but I think that the youth between the age of teenagers until I think 40s, they are using social media in a daily way. Sometimes has very negative attitude. Even that we said that social media or the internet as a whole is used just to save our time. Can you see that? The internet is for saving our time, but if you have a closer look, you'll find that social media is actually wasting our time.
I can really relate to what you're saying about the negative attitude that it gives people into affecting how people think.
Yeah.
فأنا if I'm not really thinking about what I'm reading, I usually get all this negative attitude from all around me. I work, I'm a graduate.
Student, though.
No, yeah, I'm a graduate student. But when I was working in a company, in a corporate, I could see how the social media is really affecting our attitude as Egyptians. كمان we are very very emotional. We like feeling. The feeling drives us, motivates us. Okay.
And I need to be sure that you are aware, based on researches that's done in this field, there are a group of people are addicted. They are paid for spreading some information or spreading some rumors in order to affect the social media, to affect us as people. And actually, it's very effective, more than the television and more than the journals. It's very effective, actually. And in some researches, they said that social media were used to spread the terrifying, especially during the crisis times. Can you see? If they had floods or earthquakes or things like this, it was a media, a way of spreading uncertainty, of spreading chaos there. So actually, social media, in my opinion, is a very dangerous weapon. And my recommendation for this, we need to be very educated when we are using social media.
If I understand that your research is based mostly on business, have you tried, is that right? And have you tried applying your research to political context, to social context?
Oh, actually, it's not concentrated in business. I'm trying to measure the people's attitude, and sentiment analysis is my main focus, in fact. So, doing business there, yes, based on other researches, it is a great way. Can you see the website? It's called Jumia. It's raising there, and also we have something that's Amazon has built. Su.com. So this is a big sign, hey guys, business on social media or on the internet is very successful one. And I think when I was in AUC, in some places they just closed the shops and they relied only on the internet shopping. And we are going ahead to this one. But do you know the market that is resisting? It's concerning the clothes ones. Because it's very hard for you to try things to you over the internet. But there's a lot of technologies there. You just click on something and you see yourself wearing it on the computer.
Some brands are kind of to be able to go with social media or internet. They're kind of doing both. Like there are some shops where you can go to the store or just buy it online and buy.
Yes, exactly.
But
Arpi was talking about the Armenian culture. And I want to ask her, I think when you were talking about journalism most of the time, right?
Journalism, and because it's harder to measure social media because we don't have that many impactful pages on social media, so my focus was on journalism, broadcast journalism, and online newspapers.
So social media doesn't have that big effect on the political part?
No, it does have a big impact, but there are challenges when measuring social media because one of the things that, again, I wanted to mention was the issue of privacy. A lot of us, we do post on Facebook, we put our political opinion, but we only make that available to our immediate friends that are on Facebook. So it's kind of hard to measure. So sentiment analysis would be something very interesting to do on Facebook. However, I'm not sure it would be as effective to measure that kind of what we're
that's why I told you I'm using Notch. Notch is a web crawler, so it brings all the posts there, even from my non-friends. So I really collect all the posts.
But that raises a privacy issue.
Yes.
So yeah.
And Facebook actually is making some restrictions on these. It was so hard to collect this number of posts that I worked on. But what I'm trying to say here in closing the session is that I'm really, really concerned and afraid of the usage of social media. Because some of us is not that well educated, not that well aware of the dangers that we have. And really, guys, based on researches, not on personal opinions, there are people, they are called group spammers. What are group spammers? They are a group of people who are paid, this is their work, just to write about a certain case or a certain opinion in order to emphasize it. Can you see? If I'm telling you this mobile is great, okay, it's okay. But when you find about 100 people telling you the same story, what will you do?
Buy it.
You will go and buy it, right? So can you see, when you have a group of people telling you the same story about something, you are concerned about this, and you are addicted to it at some times.
And that creates the need for media literacy.
Yeah.
And that creates the need for media professionals to go out to the public and inform them about the problems that are associated with the mass media and even with social media. Because we do believe, like they used to say, it's on television, so it must be true. Now it's on social media. My friend said it, so it must be true. So I think there's a huge need for media literacy nowadays.
That's exactly. And be aware that social media is not a source of news. It's not a source of news. It's people's opinions. It's not authenticated at all. So we hope that really we find a way to tell people this and really would be wise when we are affecting about something using the social media. Thank you for your time. We really enjoyed this session together. Thank you, Arpi, and thank you, Yasmine. I'm sorry for this. And I wish to see you in other conferences and other sessions. I'm Yosra Shahin. I'm very glad to be here